Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Gonna read through two articles on the same subject. We're gonna start with this shorter article because it gives us an update, but it doesn't have quite the level of information of the second article, which we'll also look at. And there is links for both articles in the description. Two New York Police Department officers dead after shooting during a domestic call. Two New York Police Department officers were reportedly shot and killed while responding to a domestic violence call in Harlem on Friday evening. The incident occurred around 6:30 p.m. and it was a domestic incident between a mother and a son. Now, the New York Times has pointed out that a third and fourth officers have also been shot in the line of duty this week. So I believe, and I could be slightly wrong, but I believe 4 police officers in New York City have been shot and killed in the last week. I believe, again, I could be wrong. Certainly, there's been multiple incidences of police officers in New York having been shot, and certainly this Harlem case involves the death of 2 New York Police Department officers following attending a domestic incident between a mother and a son. So we're going to have a look at this article, which was released a little bit sooner than the update, and it provides us with some more information. A rookie New York City police officer has been shot and killed, and his partner is fighting for his life after responding to a domestic violence call in Harlem. So, just to be clear, the update that we just read through has confirmed that both police officers have died. Jason Rivera, 22 years of age, who signed up a little over a year ago in November 2020, died in the shooting, and his partner, Wilbert Mora, who joined the New York Police Department in 2018, has also died, according to the update that we just read. Multiple police sources initially said both had died. Well, seemingly they have. The gunman, LaShawn J. McNeil, 47 years of age, who was out on probation at the time, was shot and killed by a third officer after he tried to flee the house, having shot the other 2. So I'm just going to confirm that there does seem to be some conflicting information between these two articles. So it is possible that I'm inadvertently misreporting. If so, apologies. I can only go off the information within these articles. One is saying that they didn't know what happened to the shooter, and the other is saying that the shooter died. And one is saying that both have died, and the other is saying that one of the officers haven't died. So I do hope that the update is incorrect and that Wilbert Mora is still alive. But I guess I've presumed that the more recent updated article is the more accurate, and I could be making an incorrect assumption there. But back to the article, the gunman was on probation, and he was seemingly shot at and hit and seemingly killed by a third officer. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, an ex-New York Police Department officer who only took office 3 weeks ago, angrily declared at the Harlem hospital that the violence must stop. Here's a quote from Eric Adams, the mayor of New York. "It is our city against the killers. This is not just an attack on 3 brave officers. This was an attack on the city of New York." That's his quote. The officers' deaths are the first under Eric Adams, who was elected in part to combat the city's surging crime, and the first shooting deaths of a New York Police Department officer since July 2017. They are the 4th and 5th officers shot so far this year. By comparison, last year, a total of 10 police officers were shot in the entire state of New York. Wow. Okay, so we're not even at the end of January, and we're halfway to the number of officers that were shot in New York last year. That's quite some escalation of violence. That's quite some escalation of violence against police officers in New York. It is heartening to me to read that Eric Adams, the new mayor of New York, it's heartening to read that he's an ex-police officer. It's also heartening to read that largely he was elected to combat the city's surging crime. That's comforting. Um, but I guess the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, it's too early for any results to be judged by him, for him to be judged by any results. Too early for that, I would say. Back to the article. Devastating footage showed the officers' colleagues rushing them, the two shot and subsequently killed officers, to hospital after McNeil, the shooter, who has been arrested in 3 states, opened fire using a stolen Glock 9mm gun, which was recovered at the scene. So this McNeil, this shooter of the 2 police officers, he's a criminal, and he's seemingly perhaps a career criminal, having been arrested in 3 states. But he had an illegal gun. You know, I'm being a little bit facetious, perhaps. I'm kind of attempting to make a joke pointing out that the criminals aren't abiding by your gun laws. You know, they're disregarding the gun laws. So, you know, if the criminals are going to have access to guns, then maybe the citizens should have access to guns. That's a bit of an inkling as to my political views on the subject. I'm not an expert on the subject. But back to the article. Rivera, Mora, the 2 officers, and a 3rd officer were called to a domestic violence incident at around 5:10 p.m. on Friday. The mother, Nadine McNeil, a former corrections officer who worked in the Bronx, called police claiming her 47-year-old son was threatening her. He was well known to officers who were last called to the house on a domestic violence call in August. McNeil had previously been arrested in New York in 2003 on felony narcotic charges and was out on probation. He also had 4 other arrests in 2 different states. In 1998, he was arrested in South Carolina for the unlawful possession of a weapon. In Pennsylvania, where his registered address was, in Allentown, he was arrested in 2002 for assaulting a police officer. He was also arrested twice in Pennsylvania in 2003, once on a felony narcotics charge and once on a misdemeanor narcotics charge. When the 3 officers arrived at the McNeil house, the mother was in a front room with another son. She said that her threatening son was in the back room, and so Rivera and Mora approached the room along a narrow 30-foot hallway. The 3rd officer remained with Nadine McNeil, the mother, and her other son. When Rivera and Mora got close, McNeil opened fire, shooting both officers. He made a dash for the door, but was shot by the 3rd officer in the right arm and the head. I mean, how disgusting, how terrible. I mean, this guy has a career, he's a career criminal. A lot of these arrests that I mentioned were quite some time ago, close to 20 years ago, but seemingly time doesn't always change people's behavior. And why did this guy feel the need to open fire and shoot both officers? I mean, how terrible to throw his life away like that, and their lives. It was the 3rd incident in less than 72 hours involving New York Police Department officers getting shot in the line of duty, following an incident in the Bronx late on Tuesday night and another shot early Thursday morning on Staten Island. The officer in the Bronx, Officer Kasim Pennant, who was shot in the leg while scuffling with a teenage suspect, has been released from the hospital. So I think that's pretty much all of the article that I wish to read through. It does give us more details about the rising crime in New York. Murders have gone down. Murders have gone down quite significantly, 22%. That's significant, but other crimes, robbery in particular, transit crimes have skyrocketed. Overall crime has gone up very significantly, 35%. But I don't wish to take the focus away. This is in regards to the two police officers that have been killed in Harlem. Again, hopefully there's some misreporting. Hopefully it is only one police officer. However, the updated article does seem to be very adamant that both have died. So, of course, condolences to the families concerned and their colleagues, of course. We hope that, well, McNeil seemingly has been killed by the third officer. So we wish that third officer gets the psychological support that they'll almost certainly need. And let's hope that Eric Adams, this new mayor, does get a handle on things. I wouldn't be too critical of him at this point, given he's just stepped into this position. And if we look at Chicago, I'm not pretending to be an expert, but if we look at Chicago, if we look at Lori Lightfoot, she's been in her senior position for several years, I believe, and every weekend it's 20 shot, 25 shot. There is murder, murder, murder in Chicago, Chirac. Lori Lightfoot hasn't been able to calm down the violence, which almost all of which is gang-related violence. This doesn't seem to be a gang-related incident. It may have been. We don't know the full story. McNeil, the shooter, had a stolen gun, a stolen Glock. Maybe he is gang affiliated, but either way, let's hope Mayor Eric Adams does make some improvements to turn the violent crime that's occurring in New York to really quell that significantly.